Hi, my name's Debbie Mitchell and I'm a Senior Manager at Lace Partners, focusing on HR strategy and HR operating model. Today I want to talk to you about a project we've recently been involved in with one of our clients. They are a global retailer with some 40,000 employees across the world, and we were asked to focus in on looking at the HR operating model. So we worked with them to do some discovery, and I wanted to share with you some of the challenges that we pulled out from their operating model as it existed when we joined, and really to try and bring those to life a little bit, to give you some examples of what that looks like in practice. And the first one I'd focus on is the capacity of the team. So what we noted was that they were incredibly busy. They were doing lots of work, and lots of that work was sort of at a reactive, administrative, supporting kind of role. And what this means is there isn't the space or the capacity for that team then to get much more involved in the strategic, innovation or future focused role that they A, wanted to, and B, where they can really add value. In addition to that, we noted that the numbers within that team were spread quite unevenly across the region. And that might be okay, there might be some reasons for that, but what we noted was that it wasn't really following the flow of where they could really add the most value or where the biggest business impact might be. So we had a look with them to try and reshape some of that. The second thing we noted really was a technology challenge. There was a lot of manual data processing, manual reporting, and that leads to rework, manual handoff from one team to another of those reports. And this can mean not just inefficiency, but also inaccuracy of data, and a big challenge that line managers were not getting access to the data that they actually wanted. We also noted that decision making was elevated to the highest possible level within that HR team. So typically lots of decisions that should or could be made at a lower level within the organisation were being escalated through to the most senior levels. And you can argue some of that is behavioural or a capability challenge, and that's probably true, but it also is because the organisation wasn't set up in a way that the right decisions could be made by the right people in the right places, meaning those decisions could be made quicker. So what we were experiencing was that there were lots of blockers and barriers to decision making, which causes a lot of frustration around the organisation, either within the HR team or in the line managers or the employees who are trying to get those decisions made. We also spotted quite a lot of inefficiency, and this means that there was a lot of duplication of effort or recreation of process, policy or ways of working. So around the geographies, there were different HR teams set up, and the structure was mirrored in almost each of those geographies to some extent. Let me give you some different examples. So one example is the team were operating with multiple payroll providers, mostly a different payroll provider in each country, and in some cases multiple providers in each country. And this again is really inefficient. There are definitely providers or certainly processes that could elevate that to a sort of an above market level. Responsibility for talent attraction across the region was diversified out to sometimes line managers who would own the full process, and sometimes to HR specialists or admin teams or shared services, and sometimes owned by the COE. So those country teams were very much operating in their own silos, and they were replicating the same roles and the same activities across the geographies, again very inefficiently. Sometimes those policies would be localised or specialised, and that again might be necessarily for legal reasons, but not always. There could be some standardisation and harmonisation that would lead to greater efficiencies across that team. And additionally, they had a mix of insourced and outsourced approaches to how to respond to basic employment relations type queries. And again, that mix may not be the most efficient. I think finally, I'd pick up again on the COE point I made just a few minutes ago. We talked a lot with the team about whether they had centres of excellence or centres of expertise, and you can argue it's just a word, but actually it is a fundamental difference. So the difference we talked about was, did they want to be experts, deep experts in a field, small agile teams that were really future focused and thinking about the innovations in those COE areas like talent, learning, reward, Or did they want to be service deliverers? So they would provide an excellent service out to the rest of the business. The decision really is based around what do you want to provide. At the time, the organisation was using the COEs partly to do that strategic long-term thinking and partly to do delivery. And the problem with that is that actually delivery tends to take the priority because the business need takes over. And so we don't get to that strategic or innovative thinking. So it's worth just kind of reflecting on what the COE really means to an organisation. So I think it's totally understandable that an organisation gets themselves to this place, particularly in an organisation like our clients, where it is very fast paced, it's very high growth. And as a result, there is a continual kind of response to requirements from the business. And that leads to kind of, setting up things in a reactive way. But the opportunity to come back and look at the HR operating model, to reflect on that, to bring in some external expertise, has really allowed them to see some opportunities about how they can address those challenges and get their HR operating model fit for the future.